you doing?
Got Kevin Randall, episode 2, Alchemy Hub podcast, back in the studio in Doncaster. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Mate, it's been a while. Decades since we played football together. We've remained friends ever since, but yeah, to sort of connect with you today is special, and I think we've wanted to do this for a while. So
Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? Cheers,
cool.
cheers to
cheers,
that.
mate.
We're having drink. We always have a drink during these podcasts, so that's good, mate. It's good. So what? So tell us who you are. Tell us who you are, where you're from.
So
A little bit about yourself.
Kevin Randall. I'm originally from North London, so I grew up in North London. That's my roots. NW9. Great memories growing up there. I now live in Bedfordshire. I'm an ex-footballer, so I played professional when I was younger.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. So for me, it's I've just arrived at this point in my life now where I'm having a podcast with you, and hopefully I've got some stories to tell. But also, if anyone's watching, I might be able to take some little bits and pieces from me that will help them on the journey. Good.
So tell us about young Kev, young Rands.
What era? What phase?
Just talk us through growing up. Give us a bit of a background so the listeners can understand who you are, what you're about.
Growing up, so council estate in North London. Fond memories. That was where your character building was done. Good stock, good people. You had to be tough. You couldn't. It's not like it is nowadays. We were out in the streets and over the park for 10 to 15 hours a day, literally playing football, jumping back up, being resilient. A very tough era. So for me, it was great memories.
What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your goal?
Footballer.
Yeah,
that was it. That's all we had, really.
And who did you play for?
I was at Chelsea's academy.
Okay.
But before that, I was at a grassroots club called Forest United, which had produced lots of professional footballers. They were the best in the area. Every single year, we won trophies and cups, leagues.
Centre half?
Centre back, heading 850 million footballs every game. There was no small-sided pitches. There was no size 3 footballs. It was tough stuff.
Yeah.
And you had to grow up very quickly. But great grassroots club. Eventually moved on to Chelsea, which was a great part of my life. Got some regrets there as well at that period, which we'll talk about later down the line. But then went on to play for Barnet at youth level and ended up playing semi-professional for just under 18 seasons. And some of it was with you, mate.
Yeah.
So
I think we may have played it against you when you were at Barnet. I think we might have come up against each other.
potentially.
Probably. That would have been. Okay, so what happened with your football then? Talk to us about that. Tell us what the background is. Tell us what that looked like.
So in terms of playing or
coaching? When you were a kid, Chelsea into Barnet, what happened there?
Yeah, so interesting because it's something I want to touch on now around having the right people around you at the right time. Mm-hmm. So when I was at Forest United, it was a fantastic grassroots club. We were champions of everything. We used to win international tournaments. And when I got to about 14, 15, the team just disintegrated because players were moving on to Arsenal, Chelsea, Millwall, etc. And a few of us went to Chelsea. And at the time, when I went to Chelsea, I had a great coach, Ted Dow, who I still speak to now. And it was, I don't think I had the skill set or the tools what I would have now as a young player, because it was there was nothing around mental health. There was nothing around performance analysis. There was nothing around diet. It was just a very hard environment to be in. And I think the second or third season I was there, I don't think I had the support network around me psychologically to kick on.
Yeah.
So I ended up actually terminating my time at Chelsea myself.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, not a lot of people know about that. So, I can remember beating QPR 8-1 on a Sunday, beating West Ham, playing against Rio Ferdinand, Frank Lampard, played with Jody Morris at Chelsea, who went on to have a good career. And I just feel at the time, I feel, and this is a big subject for me, that I want to protect younger players. So I also want to protect my son. So it's really funny about my son. We'll touch on that at some point. But I just feel there's a lot of overwhelming pressure in that environment to be successful all the time. You've got to be the best. You need to be resilient. You need to perform. It's all very pressured for a 14, 15-year-old. And if you don't have the skill set around you in that period, you're going to fail. And effectively, I failed because I felt like at 15 years of age, I was completely burnt out with football. Completely burnt out. And my eye was turning. It's a funny age, 15. You start discovering other things.
Alcohol and you know,
girlfriends and nights out and stuff like that. So
what took you to... So you went to Barnet, so tell us about that then.
So that was a good period. I came away from Chelsea, had a little bit of a break, realised that I was missing football very quickly within months. Got an opportunity to go to Swansea on trial. At the time, they were quite a big club back then. And a load of us went down from London for what you call a showcase game now. And I performed really well, stand out on the day. And they invited me in for a month. And I just couldn't settle there. I just couldn't settle. I found it very difficult. A boy from London going into Swansea wasn't accepted very well.
Worst dressing room I've ever been in my whole life, playing there as a 17-year-old. Awful.
Yeah, it was literally the old stadium. You know, you're getting off a coach and there was an old stadium and next to it was a prison and they're all shouting out at you. And the environment for me was just like, they wanted to sign me, and in some ways it might have been the right thing for me to do, to have gone away from London and the area. But I decided to go to Barnet, and I had a couple of good years at Barnet and played with one of the So Solid crew, Junior Harvey, MC Harvey, and we're still mates now. So we were there for a couple of years, and Ray Clements, God bless him, was the first team manager.
Was he really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
There was a very, very good squad there. Alan Pardew played centre back in the first team. And I kind of got my love back again. I was very dedicated towards it. But there was heartache at the end. There was one person was given a professional contract. It was Warren Goodhine. And the rest of us were released. So you're always questioning yourself, did I make the right decision at Chelsea? Have I made the right decision? Should I have gone to Swansea? I went to Barnet on my doorstep. And that hasn't worked out. So again, it's another...
Well, maybe it has.
Absolutely. It was another knock for me. And that took a long time to get over. And again, Mills, as we speak about support networks, getting the right people around you, I didn't have that at the time. I don't think that was around then.
No, it wasn't. No, I can totally relate to that. So when you left Barnet, non-league, what did that look like? Talk to us about that.
It was good. So I ended up going to St Albans straight from Barnet. They were a big club at the time. St Albans. My dad was the manager.
Okay.
So my dad managed in non-league for 20 years at a high level. And I went there, and as an 18-year-old, I was 6'3", but very, very lean. Bit different to what I am now, but I was very lean. Probably wasn't ready for that level. That was probably what you call National League now. A lot of strong players in there. I just wasn't ready for that level. So I played a lot of reserve games there, got my love back again. We had a really good group. I made my first team debut away at Kingstonian when they were a big club. Yeah, it was. Played against Enfield as well. We were a big club. And my dad just, in the nicest way, was just kind of like, you're just not ready.
It was especially as a centre-half at non-league. You know, no one's going to, those centre-forwards back in the day weren't going to take any prisoners, were they? They're going to eat you alive.
And also as well, it's very different to playing youth football. So you're getting up and winning headers. All of a sudden, you've got a 32-year-old man who's 16 stone pinning you, and you don't understand what pinning is. Yeah. So you're having to learn a whole different art and technique around heading, how to perform as a centre-back. So I ended up going into, I think I went to Northwood, which was a very good club at the time. Spent a bit of time there. Got some good memories of being at Northwood. I moved on to, after that, I think my move from Northwood was to Yeading. So I think
where we met.
23.
Were you that really 23?
I was 23, yeah. So that's where we met, mate.
Yeah.
I was 23. You know, I'm 45 now, and it just goes to show how quickly that went. So going there was the best memories I've got from football. it wasn't necessarily about the money. It was just a special place to go to.
Yeah.
And I've met yourself, and I've met Jonathan, Keith, who's going to be on tomorrow. Just great times. Great times. And we can dig into that a little bit more if you want.
Yeah. So my memories of you, I've got this picture of how particular you were around your preparation. Like, I remember I've got visions of it now, but like your shoes lined up, everything had to be pristine. You were immaculate in your presentation. You were in good shape. I mean, with the greatest respect, I think there's a lot of footballers that I've played with who were, more talented than what you were, but you just had this like consistently good approach to everything that you did. I can still remember, I can still picture what it looked like. And I remember us, the dressing room lads taking the piss out of you because you were so sort of concise with everything, but stood you in good stead, mate, to be fair.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think I don't know whether it's OCD or not, but I'm very immaculate in everything that I do. I try to present myself well. I like things in order. I have to have things in order. Can't have things at angles, and it's got to be just right. And I think that's probably my way of making sure I was prepared.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of tease it out but like, why were you successful in that era? I mean, that team, for the people listening, we had, I was a bit of a bit part player that season, but like DJ Campbell, who went on to play in the Premier League, there was just endless talent in there. Yeah. So how did you, what was it that not necessarily from a football perspective, but how come you thrived in that team?
I think it's a really good point, because I think the failures or the decision making that I made earlier in my career, I was trying to make up for it then. So I thought, I'm 23, 24. This team there's 4 or 5 players to every position.
Yeah.
This is a special group. I've got to prove myself here. So I have to be at the front in the runs. So I was the fittest I've ever been. I was so fit. I was very determined to be successful. Even if I wasn't successful after that, I think it was my way of not closing a door, but it was like, I need this.
Yeah.
I need this. Even if it's just this moment for 2 or 3 years with this group, I have to be successful here. And we were. We won leagues and cups and had some really special times and special moments. So I think I was very motivated in that period. I wasn't really drinking. I wasn't going out. It was just like, this is an opportunity here to have memories down the line, which we had the other week at a reunion.
Yeah. Did you think did you see that it was a special team, and did you see that was your window?
Absolutely.
Did you? Yeah. And you were conscious of that at the time.
I just knew it was a special time. I don't think I had that after that.
Yeah.
I had some good clubs after it, but it was just people like yourself on a Thursday night when you were going to training, which a lot of people, even semi-pro players, are listening to this. Some Thursday nights are tough. You just want to go home and put your feet up and watch the football and have a bowl of pasta. You're going into a Thursday night training session in January on a half a pitch of a 3G, and you're just going to run around, and it's cold and it's difficult to get motivated.
Yeah.
So, but I couldn't wait to get there. And I'd get there early and go in the weights room and do a bit of weights and get some physio treatment. And I'd think, right, I'm marking DJ tonight. You're someone who ended up playing in the Premier League. I've got to be on it tonight because he's going to make me look like a clown. So I think Thursday nights were special. Tuesdays, Saturdays, great memories, great times.
Yeah, no. So that's your football career. Then where were you from a work perspective?
Yeah, so interesting. So this is something I was thinking about as I was driving up. So I worked within the corporate industry. So I worked at an IT company. I was in the logistics side of things. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think if anyone wants a career in logistics, it's not a dying industry.
Really?
Everything gets shipped by road, air. There's always work in that industry. And for me, I sort of started at the bottom. It was, how can I have a job at the age of 18, 19 that I can still play football around? So football was my focus at the time. But as I started to get a bit older, I realised that there was pathways in that industry. So I went through my management training courses. I had a private tutor that put me through courses, became a manager in that industry. Then I became a senior manager, and I ended up working around Europe. So I spent a bit of time in Paris, spent a bit of time in Eindhoven, working with some big global brands, and learnt a lot. Learnt an incredible amount from people, which I'm going to use a buzzword in a minute, that stayed with me. So that was from just being a boy that had grown up on a council estate in North London that was not institutionalised, but seen as, let's be honest, not a lot of people did very well coming from my area. And football got me into some structure, kept me away from the things that were going on in my area. And obviously then becoming a manager at work was a success again. So I had my job and I had my semi-pro football. And for me at the time, it was absolutely perfect balance. I was really happy in that phase. Working abroad was great. I got to meet some new people, came out of my comfort zone. And I worked with a large organisation called UPS, which everyone knows about. And their model is incredible in terms of success. So I'll give you an example. I was working downstairs and I had the Apple contract.
Yeah.
So we were actually moving all the Apple products from the UK into Eindhoven so that there were next day deliveries in Europe. There wasn't a 2 or 3 day lead. So when you're looking after an Apple contract within logistics, you're under a lot of pressure. You're getting calls from London all the time.
And how do you deal with that pressure? How do you?
It was tough. It was tough. It was really tough. The OCD was kicking in, so I was double checking everything. Double checking everything I was doing, treble checking stuff. And that period was, I go back to that period. It was definitely challenging. And I look at it and say, I learned something which was massive for me. So I was downstairs. There was a few issues going on with palletizing goods and getting them onto vehicles and next day delivery for Apple. The pressure was, it was like a Tom Hanks film when he's trying to get on the plane and he's looking at the clock. And I remember there was a big problem downstairs. And I went upstairs and there was a senior guy called Ali at UPS sitting in his office. I knocked on his door. I said, Ali, got a problem, mate, downstairs. He says, Kevin, don't come through the door and say there's a problem. Say we've got a challenge. Because now we're going to work out how we're going to fix it. It's not a problem. There's only challenges.
Yeah, no problems, only challenges.
And that stayed with me. So I looked at him and thought, okay. So again, that's something that I put into my skill set that I very rarely use the word problems. I'll say we've got a challenge. I don't say failure. I say you need more development. It's just about your terminology. If I don't work abroad and work with those guys, I probably wouldn't have picked that up. I'd have found it somewhere on a podcast and it wouldn't have meant anything to me. But because I was in that challenge and someone had given me that terminology, it was
you could connect with it,
yeah.
So what? And then so the corporate world came to an end. What? Because I'm sort of keen to get into the next sort of phase. So what happened? Why did you leave the corporate world? And what was the next step for you?
So it was easy for me really because it was a case of taking redundancy.
Right.
So there was opportunities to work abroad. The company itself in the background was going to be swallowed up by a bigger company.
Yeah.
And I'd been there. I'd worked there for 15 years. I was quite institutionalised in this fantastic organisation with my semi-pro. So I had loads of stability.
Yeah.
And I'll come on to that further down the line about taking jumps and stretching yourself. So I had this great little lifestyle, great little company. That was going to come to an end. So I actually had the opportunity to get a payout.
Right.
And at the time, the fear was incredible because it was all I knew. And I was getting to the end of my football career. So it was all starting to come to a big change. And I remember thinking to myself, the word is I've got to find another job now. And I don't know what that job's going to be like. Where is it going to be? Is it going to be the same? You get that whole fear and that threat behind the redundancy or not having the comfort zone. So, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And how did you deal with the fear? What's the dialogue in your mind?
I'll tell you what was really interesting because we can touch on some personal bits in a minute, but I was in a situation where I needed everyone to sort of leave me alone for a bit. I needed some headspace. So I've been institutionalized for 15 years. Football's been my life. It's all been this big blur. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, work, all of a sudden I was like, I just need to stop. And I necessarily just need this time to not find another job the next day. I was getting advice, put your money in the bank, go and get yourself a job straight away. But something inside me was telling me, you need some time out here. And that time out is going to be very important for your next steps. So I went to Spain for a couple of weeks. Funny enough, my dad joined me on that trip. And it was, Mills, I was trying to walk as slow as possible.
Oh, really?
In my sliders, I was just slowing down, just trying to notice the sea and the trees, because you're normally flying around. I was like, let's just slow down. Slow right down and let me work out at my pace what I want to do.
And were you, because it's funny, isn't it? Because we're quite often influenced by external people. Oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. And you know, with the greatest respect, our respective partners are in it with us. So there's quite often, you know, fear around, you know, have we got enough money to do this and can we do that and what's the next step? So, you know, how do you deal with that externalism of like, this is what you should be doing?
Good point. I think,
and how do you? And I'm asking because I'm intrigued for myself. But how do you stay true to what is for you and not for everybody else?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I just think at that particular time, I remember even my parents saying to me, you know, get yourself. Have you not had enough time now? Have you not? You know, no, I haven't. I'm fine. It will be all right. But I think for me,
did you know that? Did you know it was going to be all right?
I knew that I needed a break.
Right.
And I think for anyone who's listening as well, it's so important to reset and have time out. It's so important. I've learned so much myself. I've burnt myself out. I've had anxiety. I've had challenges mentally. If you don't take the time out of life and just that little breather and that little reset, you can't think properly.
Yeah.
So I needed that time out. And I think going back to your question there, you just got to be true to yourself and you've got to believe that there will always be a way.
Did you feel that though?
Yeah, 100%. I remember some of the things that I was doing. I was like thinking, I need to get a job because I'm getting pressure now. And I've got money in the bank, but I'm just not ready. I'm just not ready. And there was a crunch point. I went for a job interview. Eye candy, the buggies.
Yeah.
Right, so the trendy buggies. I went for an interview over in Stevenage, not far from where I live. I remember sitting down with the guy, and my CV was pretty good at the time.
Yeah.
I'd had TK Maxx, Amazon, Apple.
Yeah, all the big players.
But within your contract that you've been looking after, it was pretty cool. So I had a bit of clout at the time, and I'd worked in Europe and I was proven. So I could easily. I sat down and I was just myself. I wasn't even nervous. I don't think I wanted the job. I was just went. Blah, 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 blah. It just all came out, and he said to me, "You've got the job." And I think it was Mills. This was 12, 13 years ago. It was 45 grand a year, company car, work from home one day. At the time, it was for me. This is brilliant. This is solid. Like good money, great company, limited production line. When you're working with Apple, you've got all the cases and all the. It was a limited production line. I thought this is going to be all right. I drove home, and as I was driving home, I just didn't want the job. I didn't want the job. And I got back home and I said to my wife, I've been offered the job. And she was like, oh, brilliant, you know, company car. I don't want to do this.
Interesting.
I can't do this anymore. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, I want to coach. And she looked at me and she was like, oh, the money's starting to run out. And are you sure? And I remember that waking up the next morning and the conversation I had with her was, give me 6 months. If it doesn't work out, I will take that type of job, and we'll be back into that corporate.
Because that's a big change to go from being sort of in the corporate world to then, I mean, what was you, early 30s?
Yeah.
To then step away from that. That's a big change. So talk to us about the coaching stuff. What did that look like, and how?
So the transition came with me realising that I wanted to go down the coaching route, and I didn't care whether I started on £100 a week, because I had some savings and I didn't have a lot of outgoings at the time. Didn't even have my son at the time. I just knew that I wanted to transfer some of my football ability and my knowledge and my passion into coaching. Did I know where I was going to go at that time? I had no idea.
Leap of faith, right?
It was just like a leap of faith. It wasn't even, right, there's a 5-year plan to get to Borussia Dortmund. I'm going to work backwards from that. I didn't have that. It was just, I just want to be happy. I want to be outside.
How did it feel, that leap of faith then? Did you yourself? Or?
No, it was incredible.
Really?
Yeah, I think that changed me as a person. I think I'd gone from worrying about losing a job and working for someone to taking control of my own future, which we can discuss further down the line. But for me, my first job, you know, I was earning absolute peanuts. I remember starting with who was my business partner. We're still good friends now, Ben. And we had our first program in North London. And I started off on a real low salary. I'd never been so happy.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Honestly, I used to wake up in the morning, I'd jump out of bed, I'd put on my shorts, right? I'd get my boots in my hand, I'd get my laptop, and I'd be gone. I'd be coaching, I'd be moving, endorphins were going, dopamine. I just felt great. I wasn't sat behind a desk looking at invoices, chasing couriers. It was just a breath of fresh air.
Do you think you didn't realise how unhappy you were until
yeah? Well, I think for me, I was very dependent. So, you know, I wasn't independent.
Yeah.
I wasn't interdependent. I was dependent.
Yeah.
So I'm not dependent anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's a dangerous place to be.
And like, what about me and you? Like, what? Go on. What's our relationship like from your end? Like, that's one of my questions.
Well, the first thing is we had a great time. You know, you were. If I look at you back then, which was 20 years ago,
yeah, I know.
You know, you were a massive character. You know, you're a lot more professional now. You know, sometimes it takes me.
I was professional at the time, just not in that environment.
You are very professional now, like in terms of how you've grown. Like sometimes I have to break down barriers with you, because I always remember you saying to me, "Is this a meeting or a chat?"
Yeah,
I've used that. I'm always using that now. Is this a meeting or is this a chat? And I've used that all the time, and it works. But now you were very fit as a footballer. I remember that. You were at the front of the group all the time running. You didn't take any prisoners. You put yourself about. You were a winner. You were a winner. You wanted to win. And our relationship, we clicked very early. We got on very early, and we've kept in touch since. There might have been a period where we didn't speak for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we get lost and you move away and you have kids and.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're definitely in the top 5 on my phone, mate.
Good. Okay, so what does the future hold then? What have you got planned? What are your sort of aspirations? I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you know, we're both a bit older now, and I don't know how you feel, but it's like, I've got to make this work now. There's a window now where it's sort of second, maybe one second chance, but not too many. It's like time to kind of get to where you want to get to.
I think what you've just said there, the window, is massive, because for me, that is exactly how I think. I keep telling myself, if I'm fortunate through health and wellness that I can get to where I want to get to, at the age of 55, what does it look like for me at 55? I've got some ideas. I have some great ideas. I want to have income streams that don't rely on me being there, which is what I'm working on now. I want to be in a position where the knowledge that I've acquired as a coach and as a person, as a manager, as a father, I can give back in some way, whether that's coach mentoring, whether that's going out to different countries and putting on CPD events for coaches, or I feel I've got more to give in that area. I think I've acquired a lot of knowledge in the last 10 years, reading books, so many books. I've read so many books. I've picked up lots of knowledge, lots of skill sets. And I just feel that at now, sometimes, that's what I'm saying, I don't just want to be a coach, a football coach. I think I've got more to give than that.
Is being just a football coach, a lot of people would think that's, what's wrong with that? You know, what you know, if you're just a football coach who has a massively positive impact on kids, you know, people evolving into adulthood, what I'm being quite challenging here, but you know, a lot of my own experience of working with coaches as a younger person was not actually what they taught me on the football pitch, but it was the lessons and the values that they passed on, and they're setting the example.
I think
so. What is the problem? You know, what is?
I'll explain. So when I say around just being a coach, what I mean is that hopefully I'm more dynamic and I've got a better skill set than just being a football coach.
You are 100%, by the way. You have.
Just being a football coach is amazing, and I wish my brain would just be a football coach. Turn up, pump the balls up. It's brilliant. The players are zipping the balls around. The rain's coming. It's the best feeling in the world. But I knew that that wasn't enough for me. It wasn't enough to just be this football coach, session planning, finish the session. I wanted to create jobs for people. I wanted to get people into the organisation that I could develop. I wanted to get more business. I wanted to grow what we were doing. And I knew that at that point then, if I was just a football coach, and I'm using that terminology, it was not going to be enough for me. I wasn't going to be challenged enough. So I've tried to use my skill set from different organisations, acquired knowledge, to go in and work a little bit more with schools, creating jobs for young people. That's part of what we do as well. So with the full-time football education programs, it's not about just creating the next professional footballer. We've created 8 professional footballers in 10 years.
Nice.
So we have one that's in the Premier League now. We have players playing in the Championship, League One, League Two.
Yeah, nice.
American scholarships. We've got partnerships with American scholarship companies. So it's more, what I'm trying to say, and it's a good question, it's more, I couldn't just see myself session planning, deliver, finished. Session plan, deliver, finished.
Okay.
It was more, I want to create something, like create a hub. And from there, we're creating jobs for people and higher education. And does that make sense?
Yeah. So, yeah, back in the room. I mean, we've just sort of cut for a second, and Kev is very excited about other stuff he's got to talk about. I'm just kind of mindful of obviously keeping everything concise. But talk to us about mental health. Talk to us about where you're at with that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think it's important that I wanted to talk about this on this podcast, and I think we've discussed about who's in your circle, who can you add in, who do you need to remove, how are you going to grow,
personally and from a business perspective,
in all areas.
Yeah,
I think as you grow in life, you will lose people.
Yeah,
unfortunately, because they just won't be on the same path that you're on, but you'll also acquire new people. And I think that's important for you to grow as a person. So I've used that within business.
How?
It's mixing in different circles.
Okay.
So putting myself into a position where I'm not the most intelligent person in the room. So I've sat with some really top level people at some tables and felt very inferior, felt shouldn't really be here at times, but purposely did that to grow. Now, I spoke to, I won't mention the individual's name, but very high up in what he does. And the first thing he said to me was, I I need to be the least intelligent person in the room.
Yeah.
Because that way I want everybody else in the room to know more than what I do, and then I will make the final decision. Unfortunately, a lot of people in life believe that they need to be the top person all the time, whether that's a football dressing room, whether it's a football manager, whether it's working in your local cafe you run. I'm the main person. I get it all done. Don't worry, when I come back from holiday, I'll fix it all. That type of mindset only leads to burnout. So it's really important that you empower people and you delegate, which I'm learning more myself. I find it hard at times. But it's really important that, number one, you're constantly evolving, constantly learning, and putting yourself into situations where you're not the most intelligent person in the room. That's the first point I would make for anyone that's trying to grow personally or within business. Also, who can you add into your life? So if you've got a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, how can you get there?
Who have you added?
I've added some great people. Okay. So I think from a business point of view, not just a friend. We've had this conversation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Is it a meeting or is it a chat? We love that for a bit of banter, and I use that all the time. If you want to have a chat, we'll have a coffee. If it's a meeting, it's an agenda. Let's do business now. Nothing personal. Take the emotion out of it, and I use that a lot now. But for me, I've added you in, and I'm going to add you even more as we go along, because I think you've got a lot of things that I need at this level that I've got to. I have a physiotherapist that I see because I'm struggling with my knees and my hips. Yeah. And what I believe is, don't just go and see a physio when you're broke. I think it's about maintenance.
Yeah, being proactive about, just
perfect. Like, do I want to feel more supple? I'm 45 years of age. I've played 800 games. My body's not great anymore. I struggle to run. I struggle with hip training because of the pain I'm in with my hip and my knees. So for me, it's about, I'm going to see a physio to make me feel better. Yeah. Not, I have a problem, now I need to go. Yep. So I've added a physio into my circle. I have a therapist. Anybody that is struggling with mental health, I've been there. I think we've all been there at some stage.
What is mental health? Like, because I feel like mental health is probably living on the Gaza Strip and fearing for your life. That's my perception of mental health. Honestly, not honestly, but that's my definition of it. But what, and that's because maybe I don't understand or I can't internalize what that is.
For me, I think it's learned behaviours that you've had. Okay. So you could spend 6 months with somebody and learn so much and do extremely well, or you could have 10 years with the wrong guardian or the wrong person around you. Okay. So a lot of it's learned behaviour. It's changing the way you think. It's understanding how triggers affect you, how your brain operates. I really want to go on and do a psychology course. It's my next thing to do, and I'm not sure whether it's sports psychology. I think just general psychology. I'm so interested in how the brain operates and how you can change your thought processes and how many days it takes to change a brainwave. And it's really interesting. So my point there is on mental health is I've struggled, believe it or not. There's times when I've looked, people think I'm absolutely fine and I've had a real difficult day or I've had a difficult week. Yeah, of course. And I think we're all prone to having those episodes. Depression, I don't understand depression. It's something that I don't understand. I don't get it. I haven't had depression. I've not wanted to not get out of bed and feel dark and low. Yeah. Never had that. But I've definitely had lots of ups and downs. Yeah, of course. And lots of triggers that have put me into the place that I'm in today. But to answer your question there, we will go and we will train our bodies in the gym every single day. We will spend £1,000 on a Canada Goose coat, but we won't spend money to upskill our brain and our mindset. Yeah. Because going to see a therapist is, you've got a problem. You've got depression, or you're not right in the head, or going to see a therapist is having a safe place, someone that you can sit down, take your mask off, because we've got 3 masks that we wear. Interesting. You can take your masks off and you can just be Kevin or Jonathan. You're not the dad, you're not the businessman, you're not the husband, you're not the son. You can just take all those hats and those masks off, sit down and say, I'm not feeling too good, or this has affected me last week, and that therapist will just give you that dedicated time, and they've got the skill set to come up with a non-judgment answer. Does that make sense?
100%, mate. 100%. And I think, everybody needs somebody to, to I guess to not have that judgment. I think there's a perception around, particularly for men, around, sharing their truth and being candid around, do you know what? It's a shit show at the moment. Or do you know what? I'm struggling today, or whatever that is. I think there's a healthiness around that whole journey. I guess from a practical perspective, like how on a day to day, like how do you deal with challenges? I mean, a business owner, I regularly will wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Am I going to make payroll? What happens if that invoice doesn't come in? That's a problem. Oh, that feels heavy, and that's a burden. Particularly the bigger you get, the responsibility becomes heavier. So how do you deal with that?
I think it's really interesting. So just before I even go on to that, I was going to say to you that go back to our dressing room 20 years ago. Could I have said to you, Darty Brown, Bobby, not feeling too clever today? Probably not. Because we need to win this game of football, and you need to man up, and you need to toughen up, and you need to be on it. I don't think there was enough done around mental health 20, 30 years ago.
Is it mental health, or is it just being honest?
Yeah, I think.
And we talked about it earlier, like authenticity. Is there a problem with just saying, do you know what? I don't really fancy it today, or do you know what? I feel tired today, or being honest with your team and authentic. I know you're up against it from a business perspective, and like, guys, it's not.
Do you know what, John? That's a really good point. I did it on Tuesday with a couple of my staff members. Every now and then, I will show vulnerability and say, I think I forgot that, or do you know something? Can you remind? I'm not sure if I did that right, or I've missed that. To show them it's safe.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not. I'm not a robot. I'm not going to pretend that everything's okay. I'll just throw those in every now and then to let them know that he did make a little mistake there, and I might be able to fix that for him or help him and show that I noticed it. And I do that a lot more. 15, 20 years ago, shoes, you had in dressing room, socks.
Control.
Got to be the man. Got to win the headers. Got to, it's all perform. Got to be the man. And I think as I've evolved and got older and changed and become a father, and I just generally wanted to upskill my mind a lot more in terms of trying to understand people, taking a bit more time. I've got a lot of boundaries that I use as well within life. So to not get into that, really good point around how do you manage your day and how do you manage the stress. Another thing that I picked up is that if I feel I'm getting overwhelmed, I will just say to the person who's asking me for something, let me check my diary and I'll come back to you first thing tomorrow because there's a lot going on. Historically, I would say, no problem, we can do that.
Nod your head,
I'll absolutely, I'm a hero, I can do that. It just leads to burnout. So I'll definitely put those boundaries up and have those in place to give myself a bit more time. Yeah. And it just a lot of it as well is just terminology, just habits of terminology. So if I hear that, I could hear a conversation that my son is falling behind in class or since COVID, or he just needs more development in that area. I will try and change the wording so that he just needs more time and development. Stop using the word he's behind and making him the problem. He needs more development. So I've tried to use that a lot as well.
Okay, awesome. We could carry on for hours, couldn't we, mate?
I can keep going. I can talk, mate. You know me.
We're going to have to wrap up there, but so footballer challenges. Growing up, obviously not necessarily an affluent growing up. Grew up in London, tough. North London is a tough place. I think knockbacks in football, challenging. Most kids just fall away, and like I said earlier on in the podcast, I think to the success you had at Yeading, most people wouldn't kind of necessarily relate to that, but got paid, good success, trophies, prestige in a very, very, very good team with Premier League players, and I think from my perspective, I sort of admire your ability to probably in that team be one of the weaker players, but actually probably the first person on the team sheet. Pro Direct, soccer schools, Premier League players now making it. I think it's really important to hear that story and for people to see what it takes and what success actually looks like. So, pleasure, mate.
All right, top man.
We better wrap up. All right.